What it is, everybody. Thanks for tuning back in here to another episode here on the Speedbug channel. Today we're going to talk about the Hypermotard. So now that we got her all fixed up, back up and running and everything like that, you know, I'm done dropping her and all that jazz. That's right, I'll make fun of myself. Ain't got no shame in my game. Look, I may ride and race and can do it as well as some of the professionals, and some is not as well as some of the other professionals. It doesn't matter. But you know what? It's what you do with the situation and how you learn from it. And that's what makes you a better rider. And even though I've pretty much been riding my whole life, there's still some things I learn every time I do ride. So, but that's not about that. But we got the Hypermotard here back up and running, and we're going to talk about, do I think the Hypermotard is worth the money? Do I think the Hypermotard is actually worth the money? You know, I can go into a little bit about would I buy it again and stuff like that, which I've kind of made other videos about the 5 things I love, 5 things I hate about it. But I think for the ones that have been following this channel and the ones that have been really asking for more content about the Hypermotard, because you guys really like this bike, and actually I've searched myself even online. There's not a lot of content on this bike. Not a lot of people own it. Now, that could be a curse and a blessing. But as I've mentioned before in some of my other videos, out of all my Ducatis, this is the most reliable one. Out of all my Ducatis, this is hands down the most fun. And of all my Ducatis, it's the simplest and the easiest to work on. And of all my Ducatis, it's the one that I would probably buy again. Now, do I think the Hypermotard is worth the money as I continuously walk around this thing? Well, for a supermoto, if you want an all-in-one package that you're going to ride on the street, I'm going to say the Hypermotard is absolutely worth the money, 100%. But you have to keep in mind, because it has a lot of great things going for it, but at the same time, the things that are going great for it destroy it on its other end of the spectrum of kind of what a Hypermotard is supposed to be. So let's kind of go over a few of those things. Well, it's price, number one. It is ridiculously expensive compared to any other traditional style dirt bike on the market. That's going to be a supermoto. Because realistically, what's a supermoto? It's a dirt bike that you obviously were able to convert to be road legal. Now, your definition of road legal and mine are obviously going to be 2 different things with lights and horns and shit like that. But it has to obviously pass inspection from wherever, if it's going from an off-road vehicle to an on-road vehicle. So after it's converted to an off-road vehicle, from an off-road vehicle, to an on-road vehicle, it usually, like as I've mentioned, it's considerably, and it's usually a dirt bike. Now, it may be Suzuki, Kawasaki, Honda, Yami, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's an off-road dirt bike, usually like a motocross or supercross dirt bike. And then you throw some street tires on it, you know. Basically, sometimes some bikes where you can actually throw, you know, straight up, just use the factory rims and throw some crotch rockets or some street tires on there, and it'll work. Sometimes the rims are too narrow, depending on the manufacturer, so you do kind of have to buy some new rims. But usually they can always find something to fit on there. And now you have yourself a supermoto, obviously with all the lights and stuff like that. Now, another shitty caveat about this bike that is killing it is the fact that it's suspension. Now, this is a curse and a blessing at the same time, because it's got more crotch rocket style suspension, very similar to, in street style suspension, very similar to like the X Diavo and the 959 over here. As you can see, like the springs are actually probably the same. The only difference is probably really the height. Front shower suspension and stuff like that, and it keeps it very basic and very streetable. Now, where it's a curse and a blessing is that when this is on the street, this bike is going to handle better than any other dirt bike on the road out there. And I don't care what anybody says. This bike will out-handle any other traditional style supermoto that you're going to put it up against on the street. It just doesn't have... Those bikes are not designed to be built to go that fast. You're turning that bike into a street bike. This bike was pretty much born as a street bike. So that to me is where its blessing is. However, its curse is when you want to kind of jump and do some hooligan type shit. Sure, you can do wheelies, you can do stoppies and stuff like that, which you've seen me do many times, but you're limited on suspension travel. because this is street suspension. So needless to say, if I was on my, I don't know, some like YZF 450 dirt bike, and I said, hey, I want to jump that car over there, well, you set up a good, takeoff ramp and landing ramp, it's going to pretty much do it with no problem. This, I don't know if I would really do that on this, because it really just doesn't have the suspension. Now, here's its other curse and its blessing. This bike weighs like 400 pounds. It's pretty heavy. And no dirt bikes, unless they're probably from like the 60s or the 70s, where they're made out of pure steel and like carved from like a piece of a locomotive engine, because technology has changed. All those other traditional style dirt bikes, and we're talking like a heavier dirt bike that's like a 450, is like 250 pounds. So this thing's carrying around like another 150 pounds on you compared to your traditional style supermoto. Now, with that extra weight, you have a steel frame where everything else is aluminum, more on a dirt bike, because weight goes into factor when you're throwing that bike, obviously, around a supercross track or a motocross track, absolutely. To throw around something that's going to be 400 plus pounds is going to start to weigh on you and keep you a little bit tired. Now, the other bikes are usually single piston. Some are single overhead cam, some are dual overhead cam. That's whatever, the cylinder head configuration. And the 250s range between like 25, 35, maybe 45 horsepower. And then the 450s, like the more powerful ones, you can get up into like the 60 horsepower range. But it's usually in the 50 horsepower range and stuff like that, for like the more modern ones. This thing has well over 100 horsepower and like, I forget what the torque number is. It's like maybe 70, 60 foot-pounds. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it has a lot. Needless to say, what I'm saying is that this thing creates like double the power of your traditional style supermoto or dirt bike, if you want to call it. So as you've seen, I've had this thing well over 140 miles an hour, where no dirt bike really needs to be going 140 miles an hour. A dirt bike, street tires, maybe sprocketed and stuff like that, you can get to 100, 105 and stuff like that. Now that's hauling ass on a dirt bike, because you got to remember, that bike is designed to go at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. But 70 miles an hour on dirt versus 70 miles an hour on the street is a night and different day. Day and night different. Man, I said that backwards. So you're going to know the difference. It's like doing 35 on water versus 35 on land. And anyone that's ridden like a jet ski or been on a speedboat and stuff like that, when you're doing 35 on the water, that shit feels like you're going like 100 miles an hour as opposed to doing 35 on land. So now you have to kind of ask yourself, well, do you really need to be going that fast on a dirt bike? Well, again, this is more of a street hooligan bike, and the supermoto is lighter, but it was the intention to be on the dirt. So all of these things where it's so good on this end of the spectrum, it sucks on the other end of the spectrum, and you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do with it, and what is your application? Do you ever plan on jumping it? If you want to jump off a curb or something like that, which I've done many times, will it take it? Absolutely. It has more suspension travel than your traditional style like GSXR or anything like that. That is for sure, 100%. But does it have the suspension travel and the dampening to jump over a car, or maybe even something like a toolbox? Well, it may do it, but who knows how long these forks and these seals and stuff are going to last. And nonetheless, like I said, it's like another 150 more pounds. So again, it's that balance of what it is that you want to do. And here's the other thing, because this bike is so expensive, you drop your supermoto, a lot of plastic and stuff like that, parts are cheap. This is a Ducati, okay? Ain't shit cheap on this bike, okay? Everything is a pain in the ass to take off and put on. You seen when I dropped it and broke this piece, this little piece was over $100. For like $100, you can replace like half a damn dirt bike. It really doesn't even matter the brand. So you have to ask yourself what it is that you're going to do. If you're always and only going to stay on the street, well then, and you're not like a crazy hooligan person, or you're going to need to flip out and jump and do everything, well, then this one might be the better option for you. It also comes with passenger pegs and stuff like that, where You can put it on your other Supermoto, but again, it's not really designed for it. So, do I think the bike is worth the money? Absolutely yes, if you plan on staying with it on the street. Do I think the bike is worth the money if you really want to be like a hooligan and drive this shit around like you Ken Brock, but on a motorcycle on the street? No, you need to go get you a traditional style Supermoto bike and convert that joke over and have fun that way, because you're gonna drop it. Well, because you're gonna be pissed as shit when you drop your Ducati and you feel that this little only piece has a scratch right here, and you call up the dealership and say, hey, I need the small tail section of this bike here. What's this cost? It's gonna be your right arm and your right testicle. And you're gonna be like, right there. And you're gonna have to put it on the counter because it's gonna drive you crazy. It's a Ducati. But if you have a traditional style Supermoto and you got a little scratch on it because you've been dropping it and you already hooligan, you know, and doing hooligan shit on it, it really ain't gonna bother you the same way. So that's just my synopsis, but you know, some of you viewers may think differently. But do I think the bike is worth the money? Yes, if you're gonna stay on the street. No, if you're really gonna do some crazy shit with it. And I primarily ride this bike on the street. I still plan on getting a dirt bike. Stay tuned for that when that does come to the channel. I just don't have it now because I don't have a truck, for one, to tow it, and two, I don't have a place to currently ride it right now, and I don't feel like riding it on the street and running from the cops and going to jail. So when the time comes, that's when I'll get one, and until then I guess it'll just stay at the dealer. So if you're in the market for a Hypermotard and you're going to stay on the street, check one out. You really can't beat it. And I really think it's a great bike, and it is probably my most favorite Ducati. So I really like it, and hope this helps you make some decisions and some differences. I know some viewers that are watching that love this bike, where the content is kind of scarce on this. Some of y'all have sent to me pictures, and congratulations on your Hypermotards and the decisions that you've made, and have fun and ride safe, because it is a badass bike and it is super fun. So that's going to wrap it up here for today's video on the Hypermotard. I hope that was informative. Again, Facebook, Instagram, at the Speedbug, same name here as YouTube. And we will see y'all for another episode here on the Speedbug channel. Peace.